It yelled at us. All right. Okay. Hi everyone, welcome. This is the 419 poetry reading event presented by Orca Books and hosted by the Olympia Lamplighters. And really, without any further ado, I present the poets.
We, the people, communities of color, workers, migrants, grandfathers, grandmothers, mamas, daddies, elders, babies, young folks, indigenous ancestors, Aboriginal people who have spent time, love, sweat, and tears fighting for, caring, working, dreaming for these community, for these barrio, ancestral lands.
This tree, this garden, this flower, for generations, centuries, and time beyond Gregorian missionary calendars.
We have been displaced, gentrified, philanthropimped by the forces of money, corporations, lumber industrial complex, medical industrial complex, pharmaceutical industrial complex, devil opers, criminalizers, and gentrifuckers, and now only exist as a cultural memory, an artifact, a memory in your mind.
A reference, a brushstroke, a photo, an exhibit, a dream to be studied, theorized, painted over, documented, or forgotten.
And erased completely. I thought we were never here.
Gentrification tours are us, exist to document that theft, reclaim and take back those stolen spaces.
Take back the memories, the images, pictures, lives, and dreams.
To tour and document the default colonizers and 21st century missionaries, the erased and colonized culture and cultural stealers, to reinsert ourselves in the stolen landmark and to reclaim what little of us might still be left. Gentrification tours are us!
Coming soon to a displaced gentrified neighborhood.
My name is Zaire. I come from Old Block where people sling the glocks and sell rocks. When I roam down my block, I hear pop, pop. Here comes the cops. People being killed on the spot.
My name is Kibu G, and when people look at me, they see the white rich kid that I'm always supposed to be in this destructive construct of society. They don't look further to who I really am, bursting with knowledge like a pearl in a clam, white, light in skin, but not in mind, struggling to push myself out of this monotonous grind. Repping my SF, my Chinese, my Mexico, and Puerto Rico. Mi lucha que es rico con amor y sabor, with strength and with valor. But most of all, the people who give me power. My mom, my uncles, my aunties, and my friends, because I know there wouldn't be a me without them.
Well, I am Amir Cornish from the West Coast. I broke the school chains that tried to break me down inside their little twisted system. They said my disability would help me down, but instead it helped me rise up to glory to fight another battle.
My name's Akil, and I'm eating up these poems like I just got a free meal. I'm the international mix boy. I wrote a little something that I hope you all enjoy. I come from the crack roads and speeding cars, and live in the brick homes with big cigars. I've been alone for most of my life, but I still stand here trying to unthrone the president and his wife. I will always fight for what I believe is right. My goal is to end all this poverty and threat.
Yo, I'm that poverty scholar with the chip on his shoulder. Still fighting the system, keeping it going like a soldier. When times get rough and tough and I feel like I had enough, I pick myself up and break out of these cuffs. Liberating my conscience as y'all look in astonishment. Racking knockouts like my name was Jack Johnson. Freedom from the system, breaking down this in Parliament.
For all the people who look at me up and down, and they don't know why I'm coming to this town, I'm come to support my indigenous people, and I'm so proud.
Muteado silencio, presente y me alegro, mis palabras son mis balas, mi lápiz es mi arma. Muteado silencio, my words are my bullets, my pen is my gun. So sit back and relax, because we're gonna drop out your minds. We crossed the border crossed us, indígena de mi sangre, presente y me alegro.
Anti-social workers and case manglers call me crazy, lazy, dumb, and a bum. Because my knowledge don't come from the institution. See that houseless mama, daughter sleeping in a tent? That's because we don't got money for the rent. Yeah, I'm a poverty scholar. That houseless mama, that houseless daughter, all those people you don't want to see, never want to be, look away from me. What you gonna do, arrest me?
With your city.
Yeah, I'm a poverty scholar, and I rock my jailhouse attire, not because orange is the new black. Don't believe that crap. Hollywood will sell you that. It's because me and my mom did jail time for the poverty crime of being houseless in this occupied indigenous holler. Yeah, I'm a poverty scholar, the melanin challenged daughter of a strong Afro-Bolivian mama. For without whom there would be no me. A mama so dead
And the welfare queen.
Thank you, everybody, for this beautiful night. We are.
Yes, and it's just a few of us who make the trip from the San Francisco Bay Area. Poor Magazine, which is a poor people led, indigenous people led, multi-generational, multi-ethnicity. Again, all of us coming through poverty and using our struggles, again, to speak of what's happening in the streets and what's happening here in the calles of America.
We are clients. Your consumers, your research finding. We are the impacted, the harassed, the profiled, and the bordered, the detained and the incarcerated. And like anti-social workers and case manglers called me, we are those ones they call crazy, lazy, dumb, and a bum. They're the ones that they call the jungle, because we don't have a roof to live on. How you gonna call people, basically equate us with our four-legged brothers and sisters and relatives because we don't have access to a roof? Well, that's what just appeared on y'all's corporate newspaper. The jungle, the land under the jungle is being bought, sold, pimped, and played by the politicians in this town. And we want to give extra love and shout out to none other than the powerful Talana Reed is with us tonight. And hopefully a little bit we can have her come up and speak for herself, but the reality is we already know the tricksters and the wealth hoarders continue to steal, rape, and buy and sell Mama Earth every day in their KKK. So what we're trying to do is build a self-determined movement that has nothing to do with tricksters, pimps, and realist snakes, with developers and the people who think they own Mama Earth, because that's all some bullshit. And no matter how you frame it, no matter how you put a spin on it, it is with a root understanding and overstanding that Mama Earth is for sale. And that ain't how we get down. But that's a very dangerous thing to be, because ain't nobody own us. We speak for ourselves, and we speak for folks like yourselves, and we again appreciate you. We're going to start in a good way tonight by asking people to do a prayer. So if you are able, and only if you're able, you can reach down and hold on to this concrete covering of Mom Earth, of this beautiful bookstore. Orca books!
Yes!
We love you. Close your eyes, take in a deep breath. Thank you, Creator. Gracias, Creador y Creadora, por tu vida y mi vida. Thank you, Creator, for another day of life. Thank you, ancestors of Squaxin, Shillelagh, all of the relatives of this stolen land. And apologies if I'm not listing them all out. The Broken Medicine Creek treaties and all of the brothers and sisters who we don't even know. Thank you for inviting us in, for allowing us to be on your land, and for still being here 528 years later, fighting, resisting, and refusing to believe the oppressor's construct about Mama Earth. Thank you to all the Black and brown and poor people who died on the streets behind the lies of capitalism, who continue and who we always walk with very carefully and humbly. Thank you all to all the ancestors of pro-life's terror, calling out Yvonne McDonald, and calling out the sisters and brothers we don't know the names of. Calling out of the so many folks who have built this stolen land so that wealth hoarders could continue to remove and gentrify this all. Thank you to all of you for being here tonight, for your ancestors, for your mamas, for your daddies, for your tias, your tios. Brought you here, and you may not know exactly why. Thank you for sitting with us, and thank you for all of you. Thank you to Mama Earth, without whom there would be no us, a shape, a hope, So you're seeing some of our beautiful youth scholars from Decolonized Academy. Also want to shout out to Teacher Jason, one of our powerful warriors and teachers. And so he's not in his usual poetry spitting narrative tonight, but we're gonna just let you pause on that, let you know that, like my brother said, there's many of us. We are building homefulness, a homeless people solution to homelessness. It's a very big thing, and it's a very small thing. Just I want people to say that with me. Homefulness.
Homefulness.
Very important to put that into the ether. We came today and we had the blessing of being invited into the Deschutes encampment. You don't need to go to Oakland to find unhoused people. They're right down the old street. And like I always say, houseless people aren't movement sexy. Ain't nobody want to fuck with us. We don't make sense. We're considered the drug users and the hobos and the bums. And the reality is we're humans. We're a multiverse. Just because we don't have access to a roof, it doesn't suddenly make us the homeless people. So if you can walk away with that small piece, we'd appreciate it. We have many lessons. And so one of the things that we do is we make a lot of media. And so we brought some books, and we're hoping that you support this beautiful bookstore and buy some of them. And we're going to be doing a little bit of reading from them. The other thing is that we really want to give space to Talana and have her speak a little about what she's doing in this town. We also want to say that we're interested in seeing if it's possible to help folks here build a homefulness. Real talk. How do we do that? It's because folks with different forms of race and class privilege come to people school. It's not a fucking little magical Winnie the Pooh in the sunset thing. It's about people being truthful about their access to resources that they have, about coming forward with those resources and radically redistributing. Or what we say and we teach in the book, ComeUnity reparations. Not to be confused with African people's reparations or cultural reparations. It's rooted in interdependence, which, by the way, we're down with all reparation movements. All people deserve to be repaired for the shit this society put on everyone. This notion of ComeUnity reparations is I can't walk by my brother or sister on the street and practice what I call the violent act of looking away. And that's a very hard thing for people to hold, because even if they're conscious and loving, they still can't seem to hold this dissonance about what I need to do about my brother and sister. Well, part of what we teach and part of the piece of the medicine of Poveryt Scholarship is that we want you to stop perpetrating the cult of rehabilitation. We don't want a savior, a pimp, or an institution. We want you to walk with a poor people-led revolution.
Yeah.
That's a very different way of operating, right? It changes the relationship. And so, without further ado, we want to read a little bit out of the Poveryt Scholarship book, but also the How to Not Call Whole Lives Ever. As a poor people-led movement, we hurt each other. It's not, again, it's not some cutesy dream, it's a real thing. Our youth scholars are part of a revolutionary school that we built on the land at home from us. We also have a radio station. We have a library. It's like the Zapatistas and Chiapas. So we're actually building our own village with our own solidarity movement, helping and supporting and walking with us. But we do hurt each other. Real talk. Guess what? That happens. And one of the things is we've all been taught and lied and sold and told on this notion that the way to solve our problems is through these three numbers. That we know a call to those numbers leads to the test, arrest, and death of all of us. So we want to also pull these lessons up and leave you with some of them and encourage you to buy the books, because more than anything else, it helps you all begin your decolonizing deep into something. But let me let's ask, before we begin any further, let's ask Sister Tulana to come.
So my name is Tulana, and before I start, I want to say that when my aunt was working in 2018, I couldn't get a call back from Cairo News. I couldn't get a call back from anywhere, not even from the Olympian, to reveal the truth about what happened to my aunt. And she was murdered here in Olympia. And somebody that I was working with in Surge, a good friend of mine, Lisa, was saying, you know what, I have somebody that I need to connect you with. Somebody that will share your story and not ask questions and get to help get your story, your aunt's story out there. And it was Poor Magazine. My first ever radio interview. Lisa didn't question me. She didn't doubt me one bit that my aunt was murdered. She believed me at face value, and that's important. You know, when we're in a system and we're fighting, and we try to go for help, and there's a block put up, there's a roadblock put up immediately. All the way in the Bay Area, I'm on the phone, I'm crying, I'm not knowing what to say. But she walked me through the process of sharing my aunt's story for the first time, and to get it, over the airways. And that's important to me. Thank you so much for that. Well, I'm a Poveryt scholar. Born and raised in Tacoma. My mom was a single mother, 3 kids by the time she was 19 years old. I have 2 older brothers. On my 5th birthday, to the day, August 24th, 1980, my mom got off welfare. And they didn't need me to stand in line to get government cheese, didn't need me to get food stamps. It meant that she didn't get any more, she didn't get housing, she didn't get any cash assistance. My mom worked for the state for 35 years before she stopped working. We were still poor. My family system where it's, my brother's in and out of Raymond Hall for ridiculous things, but in and out of the system. I remember the very first time my family was really traumatized by the system is when a CPS worker went to go talk to my brothers at school because and they had told this worker that they got a spanking for stealing something. I think they said they got a whooping because they got their asses whooped that day. And they took my brothers from my mom. Told my brothers that my mom had no right to discipline them, no right to spank them. And crazy. I mean, our lives have changed after that. They ended up coming home, and one day my mom was getting ready for work. My brothers were, they were, teenagers, not wanting to go to school. My mom told my brothers, get up and go to school. You're not going to be in my house while I'm at work. Most parents would say that. I'm so much of that today. Yeah, it's go to school or don't. You're not going to be in my house all day while I'm at work. My brothers left and went to one of their friends' house who's white, and their mom called the police on my mom. And said that my mom kicked her children out, abandoned her children and kicked them out of the house. That day I came home from school. My mom wasn't home. My mom was in jail. They arrested my mom, and charged her with two counts of abandonment. And, I think the ComeUnity did an evening paper at that time. My mom was on the front page for abandoning her 2 children, because she told them they need to go to school or get out of her house when she's at work, because somebody decided they wanted to be in somebody else's business. That broke my family, that broke my mom. Everything she'd worked for, everything she'd gone through, all the money she'd saved was spent on an attorney to clear her name for just being a parent, for being a good parent. And this story, I haven't shared it with a whole lot of people, but it came out after Lisa and I started the reading group, the Poveryt Scholarship reading group. My mom participated in that. I didn't want to remind my mom of that painful, painful time. All she was doing was be a mom, doing the right thing. And she got an attorney, cost her everything she had to get those charges cleared and off her record. But guess what? It kept my brothers in the system, because they kept them in foster care, because she was still a bad mother in their eyes. Even though she beat the case, she was still a bad mother, and they kept my brothers from our house and from our home. And it was just, wow. That's why I'm who I am. My mom's a fighter. My mom she's a survivor. And yeah, I know my family's not the only family victimized by the system, by CPS, by the police, but people need to hear that about me as I run for city council here in the city of Olympia. Let me go through this. In 1989, a young woman jogging in New York Central Park was raped and beaten nearly to death. The high-profile attack upon white investment banker in the heart of the city was quickly called the crime of the century. There was intense public pressure to solve the case, and indeed the police quickly arrested 5 young Black and Latino boys. They had been part of a larger group of gunmen harassing passersby in another park. After intense interrogations ranging from 14 to 30 hours in length, 4 of the 5 confessed to the crime. These 5 were charged with the attack. Unfortunately, the boys soon recanted the confessions, which they blamed on police coercion. No physical evidence linked the young men to the crime. No physical evidence indicated that there was more than one attacker. The semen found in the victim did not match any of the young men, and the 4 confessions were inconsistent with each other and the physical evidence from the crime scene. Nonetheless, the young men were convicted and sent to jail. Real estate developer Donald Trump called for their swift execution in a full-page newspaper ad. 13 years later, Mateus Reyes, who was serving a life sentence for the murder and confessed to the crime. Indeed, his DNA matched the semen recovered from the victim. The attack on the jogger was similar to the MO to his other rapes, none of which involved any other perpetrator. That was a Central Park 5 case. My aunt, Yvonne McDonald, in 2018 was found on the west side. Street sweeper reported that he found her laying on the side of the road. He never went up to her and checked if she was okay. He said he could see that she was breathing from 15 feet away, and jumped back in his street sweeper and said he continued on his route after calling 911. That's not what he did. He stopped his vehicle and to put a mailbox back on his post where he found it. And this came out of his mouth because I talked to him. To put the mailbox back where he found it. That big word was originally needed to be placed. And he said he looked up from the mailbox and the contents of the woman's purse were lying on her. Her ID was out on the ground, her checkbook, everything in her little purse was on the ground, the purse next to it. He said he looked up from that person and he saw a woman laying in the yard, with her shirt unbuttoned, her pants down around her to her knees. He said he didn't go up to her, he could tell that she was breathing. He needed her to get back and finish his shift. He didn't say he called 911, he didn't, he called a non-emergency dispatch number. In the meantime, they dispatched 1 male police officer to the scene. He got to the scene, he said he walks up near Yvonne McDonald and her purse was next to her. And he retrieved her ID out of her purse. He said he retrieved her ID out of her purse and he was able to identify her. And that He didn't say he gave her CPR, didn't say he checked her pulse, nothing. He said he saw no signs of trauma, but yet she was unconscious. Did nothing to help her. About 12 minutes later, paramedics get there. Advanced life support get there. And the medic said that they got there, they pulled her out of the bushes, and she was still partially clothed. They pulled her out of the bushes. That's what they said. And he said that he assumed she was overdosed. So he gave her Narcan. Without checking her pulse, without checking her to see anything about it, didn't know. He said he saw no signs of trauma though, although she was unresponsive. And obviously unconscious. He said that he was done working on at 9:37 a.m. She was admitted into the hospital at 8:02 a.m. They left her outside for over an hour. From the time that phone call was made, the paramedics dropped her off at the hospital, they just literally did that. They told the hospital that we found this woman in the yard. We think she went to go take a pee and fell, but we don't know what happened to her. Here she is. But in his report, he says, like I said, he was done working at her at 9:37 a.m. She was admitted to the hospital at 8:02 a.m. In that short time, I'm sure you guys can count how many discrepancies there were. Yet our city of Olympia says, and they say it's a suspicious death, the city of Olympia says they don't see any evidence of crime being committed. That street sweeper I speak of is still employed with the city of Olympia. He's been there over 30 years. That's a history of reckless driving, a history of destruction of property, hit and run, not reporting accidents to a supervisor, all in a city vehicle. Yet our city manager sees no evidence and no reason for him to be a suspect in this crime. Some of the most obvious differences in how Black and white people in America are treated can be seen in the disproportionate number of people of color in jails and prisons, according to the ACLU. Although the United States has only 5% of the world's population, it has close to 25% of the world's incarcerated population. An average of 1 in every 17 white boys would be in prison in his lifetime, compared to about 1 in every 3 Black boys and 1 out of every 6 Latino boys. These are just a few of the startling inequities that contribute to the legacy of slavery, Jim Crow laws, and other forms of systemic racism against Black people. How can we partner with one another? I think first and foremost, I believe the power of building relationships with people that aren't like you. If you're gonna stay close to home, if I'm gonna stay close to home, I would recommend building relationships with Black people in particular today. Americans are confronted by the social ill of police brutality in Black communities, as well as the constant devaluation of Black lives, and are being questioned on their stance regarding racial equity and justice. Nevertheless, we will receive answers along the lines of, I'm not a racist, quickly followed by, I don't see color. As evidence of the prior claim, or even, we are all of one race, the human race. On top of that, people are even more confused, and racial scholars and activists argue that race is a social construct, which it is. Holding on to the ideology that we are all treated the same, fairly and equally, no matter the color of our skin, is dangerous. When race is described as a social construct, the point is to say that there is no biological reasoning for race. Up until the early 21st century, scientists attempted to prove the biological supremacy of white people. Genetic superiority was that World War II that's what that was all about. Particularly in the United States, the target of century-long experiments were Black people. However, we know now there's no difference between across race biologically or genetically. To say race is constructed by a society is to say that race is a classification system invented by humans. In addition, that means that it takes a society, a system, to enforce it, as well as deconstruct oppressive notions that subjugate racialized people. When individuals attempt to be colorblind, will not change the system or the society in which it takes place. That is what systemic racism is. The system is produced in order to maintain power and structures. In America, that power and structure is one of white supremacy. Not white supremacists, mind you. I'm not arguing that white power fractions like the KKK are behind the scenes of instigating racial unrest. I'm recognizing that being white is also a construct. However, whiteness is a constructed monolith designed to seem like racial categorization in order to harness power over the system. You can't be racist against white people because the white is a chosen category. Rather than a race as that is ascribed, white people have the option to identify with their country of origin, but choose not to. By clinging to whiteness, those people are freed from the stereotypes tied to their ethnic background. White privilege is the ability for your skin color not to be determined how you are perceived. White supremacy is what happens when standards that are more easily attained by those with white privilege becomes the standard that all people are judged by. Standards such as respectability, which includes appearance and dress, to family norms such as two-parent households and heterosexuality, standards that are represented in the media and replicated as normal, ostracizing any who do not fit. These standards govern our society, our laws, and our individual lives. Social constructs are grounded by history, institutions, and stereotypes. The history of Black people in America is that we are taught often highlights of Martin Luther King Jr. and the fight for civil rights. Sure, there's a small section of slavery, but it tends to be overshadowed by the Civil War. How is it that we must remember and recite the major battles of the Civil War in our history classes, but not the heroes of the Underground Railroad? How is it that some Americans have the audacity to tell African Americans to go back to Africa, where the transatlantic slave trade and the practices of chattel slavery stripped these human beings of any sort of identity and connected to their homes, their kin, and even their future as they watched their children sold off like animals? What does it mean to be Black in America? That's a big question. One, that your ancestors were sold into slavery, crammed into a cargo ship, and forced freely labor or on plantations. From this dehumanizing process, a new identity of Blackness arises and unites those who were enslaved or whose ancestors were enslaved as African American. That is the history behind the racial construct of Blackness in America, a history we as a nation refuse to face. Two, we also describe those from the African diaspora as Black. All people who are Black in America are subject to the ghosts and realities of centuries of oppression and racial injustice that weighs upon the visibility of their Blackness. To be blind that the history is to allow racism to become innocuous, and to allow the comment, well, they're not slaves anymore, and to allow the injustices of the past to be reproduced today without thought of how the game was rigged to begin with. What do we need to do to recognize Black people, to value them in our society? Elect me in office. It means moving beyond the ideology of colorblindness and recognizing that our anti-Blackness for America as a whole, it means acknowledging our inner racist tendencies. Almost done. In his 2019 book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, Ibram X. Kendi writes, the opposite of racist isn't not racist. It is anti-racist. What's the difference? One endorses either the idea of racial hierarchy as racist or racial equity as anti-racist. One either believes problems are rooted in groups of people as racist or locates the roots of problems in power and policies as an anti-racist. One either allows racial inequities to persevere as a racist or confronts racial inequities as an anti-racist. There's no in-between safe space of not racist. To add, let us remember that being a racist is not an identity category. It's a choice. In order to move away from wanting to be not racist to being anti-racist, we need to not think of racism as something we're scared of. What we need to do is recognize Black people, to value them in our society. It means moving beyond the ideology of colorblindness. For Americans as a whole, it means acknowledging our interracial racist tendencies. When I decided to run for city council, I knew good and well it was going to be a fight. So that's why I got a lot of white people behind me. And it's working so far. You know it's going to work. I really latched onto my friends propelled me to do it. I mean, hey, let's do this, we'll be behind you 100% of the way. It is a people-led campaign, not because I want to be a politician, I'm not. I'm a political candidate trying to change how how Olympia is operating.
Okay. I see.
It's been 30 years since a Black woman has been on that council.
Wow.
And then only for 4 years, so no Black people. I don't want white folks to go through this election process, trying to pick which Negro is the best Negro to elect. I want them to pick the candidate that is most qualified. And I'm not talking about by wealth or skin color, but by experience, by work in the community, by drive, by what we've come through and overcome. What we've overcome. And what we're currently doing in the community. I don't own a house here in Olympia. I'm not opposed to homeownership. But I do know that I've been part of the system that it, from when I was a little girl, attacked my family. I mean, I told you guys the story. And believe me, it went on and on from there. But the things that I've seen, the things that I've overcome, the people I've worked with, my family is still standing strong. My aunt was murdered. It wasn't her fault. It wouldn't matter. She should be here. She's not. And we need people to fight against the system that thinks we're dumb enough to believe that she just went to go take a pee and fell. And that's how she died. The current council is aware of all these things. We did not elect near one of them back into office. And vote those in office who really care about the city. Thank you for your time. Thank you for Maxine for coming.
Apparently we were supposed to be on a stage. We're coming back to the stage. We're taking back the stage. And I just, again, give you another round of applause.
Yes!
We're gonna ground you a little bit in what is Poveryt Scholarship. We're gonna hear a little bit of the stories out of the How to Not Call Police book written by youth scholars. A poem, a couple poems, and then we're gonna close out. If people have questions, that's why we don't wanna just blab at you. Again, we are cultural workers. We teach as Poveryt scholars through poetry, through prayer, through the medicine of song, and through our stories. As you heard Talana's story, that was our and her story. So as we hear these poets and these stories, we want to recalibrate them as what we at Poor Magazine call research. That's poor people-led research. And I also, when I drop these words on people, I do need you to know, please don't just use them, because intellectual property is the only property us poor people have. Follow us on those digital streets. We on Instascam, FaceCrack, YouTube, Twitter. Follow us, love us, do all those, upward things like that. But the bottom line is also credit us, because a lot of disembodying and stealing and appropriating happens by institutions and corporations of our knowledge systems, our lives, our land, and our spirit. What's Poveryt Scholarship?
Yes, what's Poveryt Scholarship? The notion of Poveryt Scholarship was born in the calles, in the prisons, the street corners, community centers, welfare office, shelters, kitchen tables, assembly lines, tenements, favelas, projects, and ghettos. All the places people don't look for educators, experts, leaders, researchers, lecturers, linguistics, artists, creative thinkers, and media producers.
Poveryt scholars are told our knowledge is not valid or legitimate, that our languages and our time are inept. Our ability to speak the colonial language allows the institutions of formal education to call us illiterate. Poveryt scholars are usually silenced, incarcerated, criminalized, swept, disposed, or extinguished. The shame of poverty and disability itself and the dominant narrative of knowledge is one of the reasons that we do books and media. because it's an act of resistance to reinsert us, as we've heard in the opening narrative, in that space which is always created about us without us. Anthropology, ethnography, psychology, the study about us without us. Our spirits, our cultures, our traditions through your lens, deconstructing our struggles while our communities are dismantled and left in rubble. Acquired with academic privilege, linguistic domination gives. Long ago parsed out and separated in American school systems, the myth of inclusion and the cult of independence. How are you going to fly to our lands in Oakland, India, and Bangladesh, and Olympia, and not so much as slice off a piece of your privilege and access? Fly back to your 21st century publishers, your thesis and final tests. Yeah, so we got a new kind of fellowship. It's called a sistership, a brothership, a mothership. It's called Poveryt Scholarship. And it's right down the street and behind that trash dumpster and behind your backyard. You just couldn't see us. So I also want to call out that there's a powerful, what we call the poet laureate right here in your town, Lene Reed, in the room. And you might be able to hopefully squeeze a poem in tonight if you're
Yes!
willing. We are going to just read for a little bit from the book, have one poem per, and then we will hopefully make some space for Lene. Come on up, you scholar.
Come on, Zaire.
On July 17, 2014, Eric Garner died in New York City. He was selling single cigarettes from packs. Suddenly, two officers from NYPD put him in a chokehold while he was being arrested. He said, "I can't breathe," relating to George Floyd, which also relates to me because I have asthma, and sometimes I can't even get a breath, so I know how it feels. It was made illegal in New York City for police to do chokeholds in 1993, so therefore the police made a crime, committed a crime.
That was James by Zaire.
All right. Sun knocking in the middle of the night on the battered door of the taped-together 1970 Ford station wagon. Lights shining through the window, so much harsher than usual against the darkness that blanketed the area where the car was parked. A scared daughter and her weary mother, tired after many of these nights, most of them ending with one of them in jail after being nearly beaten. "You know you can't be parked here this late," the officers always say. And as the daughter looks out the window, she sees the relieved face of the neighbor with the phone in her hand, having called 911 on them as many have before. These kind of situations happen all the time in America, but one very similar was the killing of Luis Gongora Pat, a homeless man, a houseless man, who had a 311 call that was his execution. That was called My Mama's Story.
Come on, brother Kimo.
Hi, everyone. So my piece is about gun violence in America, in the United States. You know, a lot of people died of guns all over the world due to gang violence or just accidents, and sometimes it's children who are killed, and you know, it's pretty bad. You know, I believe for sure. And here we go. Children and Weapons: Gun Violence in America by Chemo, the Colonized Academy, Youth Poverty Scholarship. Royta DeMarco Giles was a 8-year-old black boy who was shot and killed at his local mall in Hoover, Alabama. He, along with his sister, father, and mother, were in the crossfire of a gunfight. His death is left with no answers. And I only beg to differ if we're asking the right questions. Are we questioning ourselves enough? And should we reevaluate our situation with our children and weapons? Royta DeMarco Giles' mother, who at this same time wishes to be confidential about her identity, is quoted saying, "They took a good 18 p.m. This is when 4 people, along with Royta, were riddled down with a hailstorm of bullets. The family has been told that one suspect has been taken into custody, and the police department are confident there are more people responsible for the dramatic action. This was not the only shooting at the Galleria. On November 22nd, 2008, Emantic Fitz E.J. Bradford Jr. was shot unjustly as a black man by police with a legal weapon. E.J.'s story is a different one, but being similar in location and its ties to gun violence. E.J., in short, was a black man in the Galleria on Thanksgiving. E.J. had been shot by police because he was mistakenly taken as a suspect. The police who shot him said they thought E.J. was an immediate threat and therefore was not convicted for shooting E.J. I understand the right to bear arms is deeply embedded into the DNA of this country, though it is hard to look at. This is the truth. The fact of the matter is people are dying, and the more we can have these discussions of gun violence, the faster we can find a solution and find a light at the end of this tunnel.
All these young men are 12, 17, and 18. They wrote this in their high school, Liberation High School. That is a poor mama and uncle run liberation school in the tradition of the Zapatistas and the Black Panthers liberation schools. Go ahead, man.
Tamir Rice. Police terror is a nightmare for us young black males who have to live in fear and watch our back from the police because we don't want to die young. I know Tamir Rice was a good kid who did nothing to other people, but his life was taken too soon. This could have been me because I had guns pulled on me and the police considered kids as adults, not as kids. Tamir was only 12 years old, a child, and the officer who killed him is Timothy Lawman, a 26-year-old white dude. Tamir Rice was a 12-year-old African-American boy who was at a Port Colwell Recreation Center. Tamir Rice was holding a replaced toy gun, but the police didn't know that. Tamir Rice died November 22, 2014. When Tamir had the gun in his hand at the park, the police just pulled up and saw Tamir within his hand at the park. The police just pulled up and saw Tamir with this toy gun, but the police didn't know the gun was a toy, and this the reason why the police shouldn't have guns. Tamir Rice was only a child when this incident took place, and he died at 3:30 p.m. Back then, white officers considered kids as grown men, just like now in 2020. When they see our colored faces, they think we look like men. And this is a sad story to hear because another black boy lost his life to a cop.
Over here.
So, again, we want to give space to this beautiful sister who's right in your town, is what we would call Poet Laureate. We're going to close out with a couple poems, myself and Lagala. We are members of the Poets Project, the 4 magazine. Again, as cultural workers, we teach through verse. So listen up. This is for all the mamas in the house. I think I'm going to dedicate it to Lenabri because, you know, she's a single mama struggling. This poem is in honor of homeless mothers and poor mothers, low-wage mothers and no-wage mothers, welfare mothers and 3-job working mothers, migrante mothers and incarcerated mothers. In other words, this poem is in honor of DHS with, CPS with, and most of all, system messed with mothers. This poem is in honor of all those poor women and men, and yes, I said men, because don't sing me that song about gender again, who fight and struggle and steal and beg in every crevice and corner to keep our kids in a bed, who dress and feed with tired hands, who answer cries over and over again, who deserve to be coddled and loved and fed and protected, instead of criminalized, racialized, and never respected, who can barely make it, but sometimes do, and still raise all the world's people, like me and you and you. Can I get a witness?
Yes, say that.
Who can barely make it, but always do. I still raise all the world's people, like me and you and you.
Yes, for all the grandmas.
Yeah.
The abuelitas. Purple cone reminds me of my grandma, mi abuelita, back in Michoacan land, teaching mamas how to sing the song of keeping the struggle alive. With beans and rice, with love and sacrifice, with patience and not waiting for the right time. Las tortillas a mano, just like you craft a movimiento con cuidado. You need to know how. See, and even though I could hardly remember my grandma, mi abuelita, because I was too young to recall, I taste the revolution on my mama's cooking. Y las adelitas, Ashata Shakur, las mujeres de Chiapas y Oaxaca, and indigenous people throughout the world. Really reminds me of the rebel spirit that lives in our people, nuestra gente valiente, fighting for more than 500 years, fighting for more than 500 years. Ashe, ¿cómo te
I want to shout out to all the beautiful sisters who are not here. I want to shout out to Lori McElroy, Eva Gary. I want to shout out to Sister Queen Nande Extraba, to Audrey Candy Corn, to Mama Linda, to Mama Sue, to Papa Vico, to all the mamas and daddies who barely make it every day, who are part of our Poor Magazine Village. I want to shout out to Isabel Munoz, who's one of the new residents of Homefulness, who was on the street dealing with the violence called sweeps, just like me and my mom did. I want to shout out to all of you. And to close us out, let's offer space to to come up.
Thank you. That was so moving and so beautiful. Thank you for coming here to Olympia and for all of your work. That was a wonderful opening that came in with Chris. All right. I'm gonna do a piece called Black Widow. Is everybody familiar with what the Black Widow does after she gets fucked? I'm gonna try to do this from memory, but it's been a while since I've been a slam poet. We'll see.
Come on.
Revolution of consciousness, circle of life, wheel of dharma, karma, center of the universe. We, threads of web intertwined. I, Black Widow. My thoughts, energy, express sound, wrapped around your ears. Here now, we share one memory. See? I find my mind wanders. I lose my mind. Ego, bye-bye. Soul go fly, download. Peace of mind, manifest this. Inside, outside, up, down, revolution. Round and round, confusion, state of shock. Genocide, murder. Stop the flood of blood in the streets, flow of traffic. Stop the madness, shut down. The racist, classist, prison industry. No more drug war. Stop. Break it down. Still new. Revolution around town, small business down, hit by, outsourced, offshore, downfall. Resolution. Go green team, buy organic, local weed, legalized cures we need. Sacred pieces of mother earth gives birth to spirit I heat, air I breathe, earth I be, water my blood pumps. Goddess, I'm on fire. Revolution, spirit, freedom, rider, awareness, rising higher eyes. Up in the sky on cloud nine where poetry bombs at night blow minds. And point expands, circumpunct Gaia cup. Filled with the sun, I stare at light and see the truth. This fights blindness, though in mindless guidance leads through the night. Rise in this darkness, see brightly, reflect like grandmother moon. Nightly, ponder. Revolution, dominance, submission, patent masters profit off your asses, taxes on war machines, killing me. Fuck politicians and their trickle-down policy goes around. Revolution. Idle no more. Get moving, rise up, lead yourself past this, go forward to revolution. Baltimore, slavery, Standing Rock, wounded knee, justice and freedom need revolution. But I see bondage and chains wrapped around our brains. Resolution, be free. Show solidarity. Palestine, Kenya, Syria, Unistone, the whole world is talking revolution. So refugees follow me to the sea level, global warming, rise up. Fukushima melts down, California dry up, go flames downfall, ashes to ashes, dust to revolution serves carcasses, children, porpoises, roller bears, nowhere, glaciers, splash, iceberg, crash, Titanic, sinking, downfall. Revolution around pollution, repelling off bridges, kayaktivists, stop drilling. Oil rig explodes, coal train rolls, cargo, dark clouds go up, chemtrails spray, downfall. Pain and strife. Resolution, revolution, web of life, holds everything in balance, just like karma. Wait and see. Watch now. Fuck me, I am Black Widow. Thank you very much for listening to me. I wrote that poem years ago now, before or after I went to Standing Rock, I can't remember, just to support, drop off some supplies. And I've been an activist for a long time. I've been marching since it was just against Monsanto and then cannabis and then everything, and have not stopped. And then I started marching behind my friend from middle school's cousin when their aunt got murdered. The McDonald family. Every black person don't know everybody, but everybody in Lacey knows there's one McDonald family. And when that happened, I knew. I just knew. And I'm proud to support Solana, and I hope everybody here does. And I hope that you get elected, and you deserve it. No one in town deserves it more than you. Thank you for giving me some of your time, and please, everybody, be an activist however you are. Find your skill and just give an hour sometime. You can do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
So we wanted to just close out. I don't know if people have questions, but usually we don't necessarily do that. But the main thing is if people want to buy books, we appreciate it. Poor Magazine is in fact co. We do need your note. We are not philanthropists or government sponsored, and there are no politicians involved in our movement. So believe me, we wouldn't be here for Solana unless she was the realest one. So I hope you really do kick down. I want to make an announcement that tomorrow our brothers and sisters in Tacoma are dealing with a sweep. And of course, because we are actually on Stolen Land, Hoarded Resources Tour. If you don't know about what that is, you can look on poormagazine.org, find out more about us, we'll talk to you about it. Any media we appreciate, because it's, normally us revolutionaries get no media because we're a little bit too radical. But that's called the people need to stand up, rise up, tweet up, Insta-scam up, do all that shit. And then the last thing is that we will be going down there for a porch sit because they're about to sweep an entire county in Tacoma. So we can join that. And then also Tulana's having a beautiful rally for the beautiful, amazing Yvonne McDonald, Levi tomorrow at 2 o'clock. And so definitely come and do that. Yes. And so we'll end with that. And we thank you. We always have a chant. If everybody can join me. Change won't come from a savior, paper, institution.
Change will only come from the poor people-led revolution! Woo!
Thanks so much for Lamplighter. They actually donated this time and space, so
Yes!
the Lamplighter needs assistance to keep this space too, so there's like an online fundraiser for that. So please check that out and share that with your friends. And also thanks so much to Orca Books.
Yes! Thank you, Orca Books! Thank you, Lamplighter.
I think this is the first event Orca Books has had since the pandemic.
Yeah.
What a perfect opening.
And I would love to sell you a book. So thank you all for being here. So much love.
All right. Thank you. All right.
This is a really cool spot, guys. We love the little artwork. It's a collective. It's a
So this is